This is the 101 AM web cutting machine with optional heating element. This particular machine has been used for 12 years and is back to be serviced. This button here is your power button. It turns your machine on and off. This counter here is your length. This will set the length of your material. This is in millimeters, so you will need a conversion chart which comes with the web cutting machine if you want to do inches. The metric to imperial conversion chart on this machine is located on the side of the heating element box. This counter right here is the speed that the material will feed in at. A high speed is useful for long material strips to get the process over quickly, but it does sacrifice a little bit of accuracy with the length. So for short repeated cuts, you'll just want a low speed. Here you have your additional cutter counter. The machine by default makes one cut, but if you require it more for thicker materials, you can set this how many of extra cuts per cycle you want. This counter here is the desired quantity counter. Let's say if you want 20 to be made, you just set it to that. Yeah. This button labeled shift will manually move the feeder at the lowest possible speed. This button is used mostly for initially loading your material into the machine. This button will run a cutting cycle. It is useful for determining how many cuts you require to cut your material, and also when you're initially loading your material in with the shift button, you will need to cut it so your first piece will be the proper length. So here we have the start button. It will begin the material cutting process, and it ends automatically once you've reached your desired quantity. You have your stop button, which will stop the cutting process after it finishes its current cycle. And you have the reset button, which will reset your currently finished quantity. It's a demonstration. Located here is your emergency stop switch. It will cut power to the machine the instant it's pressed, and it will stop it mid-cycle. And in order to release it, you must rotate it. It'll pop up and the machine will turn back on. Now, the distance between there and there should be slightly larger than your material thickness. Your machine should have two of these thin pieces of metal attached to the front. Their purpose is to inform you when you run out of material and stop the machine from cutting. The demonstration. So the moment the material runs out and the bar connects with the thin piece of metal, the machine will stop what it's doing so it does not continuously increase the
amount it thinks it's cut without actually cutting anything. This is the heating element control box. This switch will turn it on and off. This dial is how you select your temperature. It ranges from 0 to 600 degrees Celsius. Exceeding 500 will risk lowering the lifetime of your cutting knife. So we suggest you operate at around 450 degrees Celsius. And if you're having trouble cutting, use multiple cuts instead of a higher temperature. The machine will take a while to heat up and reach its required temperature. The way you know it's reached its temperature is whether or not the machine is currently drawing power. When it's drawing power, the amp meter will show something other than 0. That means it's actively heating. And once it's reached its required temperature, the heating system will turn off and the amp meter will return to 0.
When it comes time to use your machine, feed your material in, and once it's in like that, hit the shift button, and then hit the cutting blade. Now, for this demonstration, I will be cutting 6-inch segments in a single cut, and there'll be 10 of them. And the final product is 6 inches, and there are 10 of them. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.